Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here? If the government has nothing to hide, why are they so afraid to answer a few questions? This story does not add up.
Newly released photos of the September 11th attacks are shedding new light on one of the darkest days in U.S. history. Some say they prove that the assault on the U.S. homeland was indeed homegrown. Joining me now from our New York studio is Manny Badillo with We Are Change. Manny, talk to me about these photos and how you think that this is evidence that 9/11 was an inside job.
Well, I'm not sure how much they prove that 9/11 was an inside job. What they definitely do prove is that the United States government has obviously been lying to us about the events of that day. What we see are exploding buildings, not buildings that collapsed. The U.S. government still has yet to tell us what initiated these collapses. Well, what we see from these photos are buildings that are literally turning to dust, and the only way that happens is through explosives. Facts are corroborated by the hundreds of first responders and survivors and even victims that day that said they heard explosions, as well as the forensic evidence of the case, which has found explosives in the debris of the World Trade Center, as well as the chemical signatures of such a type of reaction. What we see is a very different story being told by these pictures than what America has heard so far about the murder of my uncle and 3,000 other innocents on that day.
So, Manny, are you suggesting that these explosives were already inside the building? I mean, it's very feasible, and I think most people would buy that there were probably explosives on board the planes, and the planes, you know, collapsed with the building. Isn't that possible as well?
There's a lot of possibilities, but the facts of the case stand. We see a building that is being taken down from top to bottom. There is an undamaged mass underneath where the plane hit. The U.S. government has already admitted that within 15 minutes the jet fuel actually burned off. Steel is an excellent conductor of heat, so any heat that was being caused by any internal fires is being dissipated through the entire superstructure. What we see is we don't see a building collapsing in pieces. We see a building turning to dust. We see pyroclastic-like flows occurring as these buildings are coming down. We see a pile of rubble, of dust, that eyewitnesses said that not even, you know, there wasn't even discernible pieces of office furniture. Where'd the steel go? Where's the core columns? The 47 columns 4 inches thick that should have been standing. The facts that we see with our own eyes should tell us a lot more than what the U.S. government has attempted to tell us and lied about.
I guess explain this to me a little better. I'm not an architect, and I think a lot of our viewers probably don't quite grasp this either, but what should we have seen if, as we are told, these buildings collapsed, the World Trade Center collapsed because a plane flew into them? What would we be seeing differently if that's all it was?
Well, we'd be seeing two buildings standing today downtown. We'd be seeing actually 3 buildings standing because the Solomon Brothers building, Building 7, the biggest mystery of all, actually also came down in its own footprint at nearly free fall speed. There has never been a building collapsing from a plane hitting it ever. The fact is that we just take a look at some past collapses that took place here throughout the world, and then take a look at how buildings are demolished and brought down. You're going to see very eerie similarities to buildings being demolished as opposed to a plane hitting them, and then all of a sudden coming down an hour and a half later.
Manny, just real quick, I'm wondering why you think that, what interest the United States would have had in getting involved in an attack like this on its homeland?
Well, you know, this is age-old. False flag operations have been going on since the dawn of civilization. The United States has participated in them. It's been proven. The USS Maine in Havana Harbor in 1898, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, Here we have, you know, the events of September 11th, an unsolved crime, a mass murder, where the majority of commissioners said we did not get the entire story, where 70% of family members' questions were never answered. We have the first place that we went to was the oil fields in the Middle East. We are in Afghanistan right now, not just for the oil pipeline, but for the other natural resources, uranium, cobalt, natural gas, and also the natural resource of opium. Okay, the CIA has been bringing opium and heroin to this country for years. We now control that natural resource. Now we're in Iraq. Now we're building permanent military bases in the former Soviet republics. This is a war of empire. This is to keep also Russia and China and India away from these places. So, no, we haven't gotten Osama bin Laden, the CIA asset, but we have gotten our troops in the Middle East surrounding our next target, Iran. You know, the American people really need to wake up and understand that, you know, we've been lied to, and now is the time for us, for we the people, to really stand up and say, we're not going to take it anymore. We want the answers. We want a real investigation of what happened on 9/11.
All right, Manny Badillo joining us. He's with We Are Change.
Ladies and gentlemen, the United States government has a shadow government that spies on the American people. It launches false flag terror attacks against its own citizens, starts illegal and unjust wars for resources and imperial control, and is hell-bent on destroying what's left of our constitutional republic in order to establish a one-world government in its ruins. Those of you tuning in to our program for the first time, we probably quickly realize that you're not watching the mainstream news media, because the truth will not be televised, at least not by any of the major television networks who are owned and controlled by the mega corporations and the military-industrial complex. You will, however, routinely get a steady dose of the truth right here on the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm your host, Darren McBreen, and it is April 6th, 2012, and here's a quick look at what we have lined up for you this evening. Tonight on the InfoWars Nightly News. Has the Obama administration launched a vendetta campaign against Sheriff Joe Arpaio? Now the Department of Justice wants to install an embedded monitor in Sheriff Joe's office, and Sheriff Joe ain't having it. Then, a look at the green totalitarian movement associated with Agenda 21. Darren McBreen and John Bound investigate. Plus, good news on the fight against GMO, InfoWars Nightly News reporter contest entries, and Dr. Laura Presley in studio with her latest campaign for Austin City Council and her crusade to remove the dangerous chemical fluoride from the nation's water supply. All that and more coming up during the next 30 minutes or so. But first, let's move right on to our top headlines. The Department of Justice attempts to install their own embedded monitor in Sheriff Joe Arpaio's office. As most of you are aware, Sheriff Joe recently launched an investigation into alleged President Obama's birth certificate with the intention of proving its authenticity and putting this whole issue to rest. But as it turns out, his team of investigators proved without a doubt that not only is Obama's birth certificate a complete fake, but in all honesty, it's a sloppy amateur forgery and amateur at best. And now it looks like that Sheriff Joe might be a target as the Obama administration, well, they're really going after him. They're preparing a lawsuit against him for racial profiling, as they claim his department is illegally targeting Hispanics as possible illegal aliens. And now the DOJ is even trying to install a court-appointed, this thing is court-appointed, embedded monitor stationed right there inside Arpaio's office. And folks, we're talking full-time. This is a duly elected official who represents, you know, roughly 4, maybe 5 million people within the greater Phoenix metropolitan area. And, well, Joe flat out refused to let him put that thing in his office. He told him to get it the hell out of there. It should be interesting to see what other dirty tricks the Obama administration has in store for Arpaio, but they got their hands full because I have a feeling he's the kind of guy that really doesn't get intimidated very easily. And no big surprise, the corporate media, you know, they remain silent on this whole birther issue. But, you know, of course, they have plenty of satire. And we're going to take a look at a little bit of that right now, as this is a clip from NBC during the Betty White birthday special.
An official birthday message from President Barack Obama.
Dear Betty, you look so fantastic and full of energy. I can't believe you're 90 years old. In fact, I don't believe it. That's why I'm writing to ask if you will be willing to produce a copy of your long-form birth certificate. Thanks, and happy birthday, no matter how old you are.
Travel down the road and back again. It's true, you're a pal and a confidant. And if you threw a party in
And I want to thank one of our listeners for giving us a heads up on that clip. We had no idea it existed until somebody phoned in the Alex Jones show today and told us all about it. So it's an amazing clip. We thank you. Our next story, paralysis cases spike in wake of Bill Gates' polio vaccination effort in India. Expert medical pediatricians in India have criticized the World Health Organization and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for their promise of polio eradication without noting the devastating side effects its vaccinations could and do inflict. Numerous problems have surfaced from what doctors in Delhi have termed an unethical advocacy that has spanned more than a decade. Now, there are literally, I think there was something like 47,000 cases of non-polio paralysis reported in 2011. Just happened to be the same year that India was declared polio-free. Aaron Dykes goes into more detail in an article posted on our website where he compares the unethical partnership between the WHO and private entities with the corporation that we saw back during the H1N1 scare. And, this is a deliberate campaign to create panic and false disaster. The article is posted by Aaron on Infowars.com. And now, some good news in the fight against GMO, as Poland announces a complete ban on Monsanto's genetically modified maize. In addition to being linked to a number of health problems, the pollen originating from this particular GM strain is called MON H10, what may actually be devastating the dwindling bee population as well. So more and more countries, at least outside the United States anyway, are standing up against Monsanto, possibly the most corrupt and evil corporation ever. Hungary and India, for example, have recently slammed Monsanto with biopiracy charges. So certainly some good news on that front. Let's hope that that carries over to the United States. All right, looking forward to this one. We have a clip that was sent to us by none other than Alex Jones, where he illustrates how the system attempts to control us with simple diversionary tactics. He's titled this piece, How Media Distractions Work. French Bulldog investigates.
Who is that? Who is that? Is that Sparky, who just got a little piece of turkey? Ladies and gentlemen, here's what the mainstream media does with WMDs in Iraq and the Trayvon Martin story. All of it. It gets us chasing our tails. That is what it does. Over and over and over again. Meanwhile, the New World Order just sits back, manipulating humanity for the light show. That's basically the Matrix. And that's how this New World Order system operates. So my question to you is, are we sophisticated enough to learn about these different techniques that are used to control us and play us off against each other? Do we see what Madison Avenue is doing? Do we see the messages that are in the sitcoms and dramas and in the culture that are designed to make us a bunch of servile jellyfish so the establishment can control human destiny.